Hey guys, doing a video here on this super cheap light I found on Amazon. Background, my son has what I've referred to as a fish-only tank. It's really not a fish-only tank. He has a bubble tip anemone in there, and he also has some green pallies in there, and he knocked his light into the tank. So I needed to get a new light, and I found these super cheap lights and thought, let's give it a shot. So I bought this light for his tank, and I really just kind of fell in love with it. I thought it was an awesome light and gave out an awesome spectrum for an insanely cheap price. As you can see here, $11.99 per strip. So, on a nano tank, you may need 4 strips or 6 strips, but again, that is super cheap. So I bought it for his tank, and I installed the strips on his tank, and these are the Amazon pictures here, but I installed the strip on his tank, and the colors that his green pallies were putting out was amazing. The colors on the NEM were amazing, and the NEM was loving it, opening up bigger. It actually split within a week of me putting on here. Now, a split can be good or bad. Based off the behavior of this anemone, it was a good split. So this is exactly what I bought. You can buy dimmable things for it. So this light here, again, they mention right in the description for nano and pico tanks. And you can even buy reflectors and increase your output of light if you choose to. It highlights that it is a 460 nanometer blue spectrum, which is a great spectrum. It is a really bright light. I will agree with that. You can buy different add-ons for it. You can buy dimmables for it. You can buy switches for it. What you will have to buy for sure is a power strip for it. It does not come with a plug. So I bought this power adapter for it in order to plug it in. You can daisy chain up to 3 lights together. I only did 2 at a time. The thing to note is this is a 12 volt power supply. Each of those strips is 3.6 volts, not 3.6 volts per LED, 3.6 volts per strip. So the entire strip is 3.6 volts. This is not going to put a ton of power into your tank. It's going to put more look. So I decided to add these to my main tanks. Why? Because I've been staring at this Reef Bright add-on for I don't know how long. I've been so close to buying it, especially over Christmas time when prices went down. I was watching it on the BRS site, and it went down to $168, and I was so close to buying it. And I saw that when I had to replace this on my kids' tank, and I saw the spectrum and how it made my corals look, I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going with. And I went with the much cheaper option. So this is the Reef Bright spectrum in the background. That dotted line right there is 450 nanometers. And that hump right there is 460. And that is the spectrum that this light that I just showed you at the front here, this cheap light, is going to put out. So it's not going to equal the Reef Bright in any way, shape, or form. But it is going to put out a super bright light, and it's going to put out a great spectrum. So unpacking the light here as it came in, it is the LEDENET light. It is 18 LEDs, 12 volts. I bought 6 of them actually, because I have 3 primes, and I'm going to put 2 on each. So it's going to be my add-on light. And this is it here in the packaging, just kind of looking at the light itself. It is very slim, very sleek. It's actually a very nice looking light in itself. So we're going to go ahead and unpackage it here. And once we take this end off, we're going to pull it out of the package, and we're going to see what contents come with it. So you're going to get the light itself. You're also going to get hanging material. So it does come with some like 3M adhesive strips, and you could adhese it in place. I would not recommend anybody doing that if the adhesive fails. you're going to end up with a light in your tank. So I would not recommend that, but that option is there, especially if you have a grate over your tank. The other option it's going to come with are actual mounting brackets. There's a hole in there that you can put a screw in there, and it just kind of snaps right onto the light. This is the option I chose, and of course you're going to see me build it with this option as I built my own mounting options for it. These are the 3M strips. So, of course, as soon as I got it, I had to make sure it works, right? So here's my tank under no lighting. This is before my lights ever came on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in one strip, and I'm going to shine it at the tank and just see what happens to my corals. So here we go. We're shining that one strip at the tank, and look at the way those corals are just fluorescing. They are bright and beautiful. At least in my opinion, they're bright and beautiful. So everything's asleep. Everything's shrunken down. This is the only light shining on the tank, and the corals are shining back beautifully. Definitely pushing out the fluorescence by pumping in that 460 spectrum, and the tank is responding to it. So this is the light I decided to put as my add-on. I do want to add a special note. The instructions say it is a 12-inch light. It is not a 12-inch light. If you look at just the light itself, the light itself, just the bar, is 12.5 inches. If you look at the bar itself with the mounting on each end, it extends out to 13.5 inches. So beware that the measurements that they give you on the Amazon site, again, you can see right there, it is 12.5 inches, just the bar itself. And here we're extending out to the first mounting bracket. We're going to go all the way down to the second mounting bracket. That is 13.5 inches. All right, so looking at mounting. So I did a homemade mount for this light. I built my own mounting to make it an add-on to the AI Prime 16 HD. You can see there how I constructed the wiring to keep this in place over the top. And then I have some wiring under the bottom that you can see here again to keep those in place, keep them level, keep them straight. So we'll talk through what I did and how we got there. So first of all, this is the mounted look of it. I'm going to show you on my 45 gallon as well as on my 15 gallon. This is the mounted look. Obviously those plugs still need to be plugged in and routed, but this is what it looks like mounted on my 45 gallon as an addition to the AI Prime 16 HD. I personally think it looks pretty sleek and just kind of blends right in and looks pretty good. And this is it mounted on my 15 gallon as an add-on as well. And there's a shot with it turned on the 15 gallon. So let's talk through building this homemade mount. So a few things. We're going to need machine screws. Zinc plated is what I got. I got the 1.5 inch screws there, and we're going to need the screws and bolts. I also got this galvanized wire, and I only got the 10 pound. I didn't need the super heavyweight stuff. So no hard measurements. A prime is about 5 inches across, and the center filter is about 3 inches across, so we need to make sure and keep that 3 inches in mind. If it is 13.5 inches from bolt end to bolt end, we're going to need to go 5 inches in on each side, and we'll mark it. That will give us 3.5 inches in the center. With that center filter being 3 inches, we want 3.5 inches, so we're 1/4 inch on each side, which makes it very easy to continue to remove that top screen and clean it and keep it going. So here we go, putting the the screw into that bracket that came with the light. That bracket then goes down on top of the light like so, 2 per light. And of course, for 2 lights, we will have 4. Because it's going to be 2 lights per AI Prime add-on. So then we'll take 4 bolts and we'll screw it down onto those screws. And it'll look like so. And then we're going to take some of that galvanized braided wire. And we're going to take that galvanized braided wire and we're going to create a little bow end on it. That bow end will slide right down onto that screw. And then we will take 4 more screws and we'll take the first 2 and we will put it on the end of each bow. That way we put that bow right in place. So we won't tighten any of this down yet. We want to leave it loose and movable until we actually have it set to where we know what the diameter, or what the length that we need for that bottom screw. We're going to cut off approximately 6.5 inches of wire. That's what I did. You can use less, you can use more. Again, the width of it is 5 inches. That gave me 1.5 inches to play with. I also recommend you cover your tank. I did cover it for my 15 gallon because that was the first one I did. When I did my 45, I didn't cover it because I felt confident in what I was doing. But I always recommend you cover it just in case. As you can see here, I set the first one up. The brackets, the mounting brackets are right under the prime and the bolts are setting right on top of the prime. So it's kind of like sandwiched in there. Please don't tighten it down and crack your prime. It is more of a set than it is a tighten and tighten up too. Do not harm your prime in this process. Be gentle with it. This is more of a set it there and get the dimensions and make it that dimensions. So I put the other light in the back and I brought my galvanized wire over to see what the actual length of that wire needs to be. Wrapped it around that screw end. And then I actually took it off and tightened up those wires a little bit, twisted them on, and then I put it back and put that top screw on. So now that we have the proper lengths on both sides, in order for it to sit there again without squeezing your prime, we can go ahead and tighten those up. So looking at it from a front view here, this is kind of what it looks like. At this point, again, starting to look like a solid add-on, and really starting to take kind of shape. So we have our 2 wires over the cross there, and as you can see, we can still remove that filter for cleaning. So the next thing we're going to do here is we are going to add a 3rd wire to make sure those can't slide off and have your light fall in the tank. So we're going to add a 3rd wire over the top that connects those 2 wires together. We're also going to go underneath and we're going to add 2 wires underneath, and we'll talk more about that and I'll show that here in a minute how I did that. But again, this locks everything in place so your light cannot fall into the tank. A couple important mounting points. So I want to highlight a couple points here on the mounting that are definitely things that keep your light secure. So we have our 2 wires that you just saw me install. We need to install this 3rd wire right here. And that is a wire that, again, we go from wire to wire, not bolt to bolt. We went wire to wire. And this is going to keep it from moving side to side and really lock it in place on top. So the other thing, and this is just kind of a front view here so you can see, again, it's not pinching it, it's setting on top. Those bolts are setting on top and that bracket is setting underneath. Both those bolts, as you can see, right on top of that prime. And then you're going to see both those brackets right underneath the prime. Again, there's a close-up of the bolt sitting right on top of the prime. And here's the brackets underneath, with the brackets going right underneath the prime. Again, we are not tightening anything down. We're not pinching the prime. We're not cracking the prime. We're not squeezing the prime. It is just right up against it. And there's a close-up to show that it's right underneath it. So then with these wires here underneath, the one thing I want to point out is you can see that wire is running through the bracket, not around the bottom of the bolt. Do not go around the bottom of the bolt. Again, the other side through the bracket. Do not go around the bottom of the bolt. You will throw off the angle of the light, and you will make it imbalanced, and that is not a good thing. Go through the bracket. I tried it the other way. It did not work well. You need to go through that bracket. So of course we need to daisy chain the lights together here. We put power to one light, we daisy chain the lights together, kind of like Christmas lights, and they still power from each other. And here it is on the 15-gallon with the prime running and both of those lights running as well. As you can see, there is a pigtail end at the end where I could daisy chain another one, and I just put that up, curled it up and put it on top of the light with a little bit of that 3M pad that they were going to, that they supplied in order to hang the light, that sticky pad that I chose not to do. We're going to look at it here as well on my 45-gallon, and we're going to get a little bit better of a look at the underneath of it with that one as well. But here it is on the 15-gallon again. You can see the way it's constructed on, the way it's being held on, and the spectrum, kind of the way it's putting out. So we have here on my 45-gallon, I haven't hooked up those lights yet. This is just the initial bracket going onto the tank. You can see the way, again, it's not pinching the prime. Those wires aren't super tight. They're not pulling on it. They're not cracking it. They're just holding it in place. And if we go underneath, you can see the underside. Again, we want a wire on the upside, on the top side, a wire on the underside, hold this whole thing in place. And then we use that wire on the top side to hold them together. That way it can't slide around. This really kind of wraps it around the prime. That way it won't slide off and fall into the tank. It also provides a good spectrum there. So again, we're not blocking any of the prime spectrum coming down, and we're just going to be adding to it our new spectrum. My what I plan on running this is I'm going to let the prime do the full sunrise for the hour, and then I'm going to add this in, and it's going to run the entire length of my program up until the sunset hour for the prime. This will go off, and then we'll let the sunset hour of the prime do its job. As you can see, it's very streamlined straight across the top there. We've daisy changed it together. So of course, 3 primes, I needed 3 power supplies because I'm running 2 lights on each power supply in order to get the whole thing up and running. Again, you can only run 3 lights on one power supply because it's a 12-volt power supply and a 3.6 volt light. So it can only support 3. It can't support 4. So if you're going to do it as an add-on, you're going to need 1 power supply per 2. If you're doing it as a total lighting option on a nano tank, you can run 3 with 1 power supply and end up getting 2 power supplies and put 6 lights across that nano. So again, those pigtails were put in place with the 3M strips, and you can see there how it's nice and secure and holding right onto that light. The last thing to do is to zip tie the power supply in place after I put it on there and turn it on. So give me a like, give me a subscribe. Hopefully you like this video. Check out some more of my content, and I'll get more out soon. Thanks, guys.